The Red Cross receives 3 Israeli detainees as part of the 6th phase of exchange deal between Palestinian factions and Israel. Labour and socialist parties in the UK call for nationwide protests against Trump's plan to displace Palestinians from Gaza. And the Egyptian Prime Minister reaffirms Egypt's unwavering support for Palestine's right to self-determination and statehood. Hello there, good afternoon. It's 4 o'clock Cairo local time and you're watching Qnews. We begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in Gaza. The International Committee of the Red Cross has received 3 Israeli detainees as part of the 6th phase of the detainees exchange deal between Palestinian factions and Israel. The 3 detainees have arrived at the initial reception point in southern Israel. The detainees, Russian-Israeli Alexander Trofanov, Argentine-Israeli Yair Horn, and US-Israeli Sagai Dekel Chen, were previously identified by Hamas. Meanwhile, Hamas expects negotiations for the 2nd phase of the ceasefire agreement in Gaza to begin early next week. Hamas has stated that the release of the 6th group of Israeli detainees confirms that negotiations and adherence to the ceasefire deal are the only ways to secure their freedom. The group accused Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of stalling and trying to evade the deal's obligations to serve his political interests. Hamas stressed that it secured guarantees from mediators before resuming the exchange process and vowed not to allow the agreement to fail. A bus carrying freed Palestinian detainees has arrived in Ramallah in the West Bank, following their release as part of the 6th phase of the detainees exchange deal. The Palestinian Detainees Media Office reported that 36 detainees serving life sentences have been freed, along with 333 detainees from Gaza who were arrested after October 7, 2023. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office has claimed that Hamas resumed releasing detainees due to Israeli military pressure inside Gaza. It also said that Israel is coordinating with the US to secure the release of all remaining detainees as soon as possible. Also, the Israeli government credited former US President Donald Trump's statements for influencing Hamas's stance. Meanwhile, Israeli President Isaac Herzog said that Tel Aviv will do everything possible to secure the release of all detainees held in Gaza. Israeli media, citing the family of an Israeli soldier held in Gaza, has reported that the detainees exchange deal remains fragile, not because of Hamas, but due to Netanyahu's political maneuvering. The family has further accused the Israeli government of deliberately delaying negotiations for political reasons. Labour and socialist parties across the UK have called for nationwide protests against US President Donald Trump's plan to displace Palestinians from Gaza. In recent days, these parties, along with trade unions and university students, have organised demonstrations condemning what they describe as Trump's ethnic cleansing plan. Protesters demand that Palestinians remain in their homeland, call for Israel to be held accountable for war crimes, and urge the UK government to cut ties with Israel. Egyptian Health and Social Solidarity ministers, along with a delegation from the Arab League, led by Assistant Secretary General Hossam Zaki, have inspected the logistics centre for Gaza aid operations in Arish. The officials reviewed the process of receiving aid by land, sea and air before transferring it through the Rafah border crossing. They also praised volunteers for their efforts in organising and delivering aid to Gaza. Egypt's health minister has declared Egypt as the world's strongest supporter of the Palestinian cause. Meanwhile, Egypt's Minister of Social Solidarity emphasized that Cairo has delivered the largest share of aid to Gaza. She reaffirmed that Egypt's humanitarian efforts have remained relentless since the crisis began, ensuring continuous aid flow to Palestinians despite ongoing challenges. At a press conference near the Rafah crossing, the Arab League's Assistant Secretary General has condemned the slow entry of aid into Gaza as morally unacceptable. He praised Egypt's efforts in coordinating relief, but blamed Israeli restrictions for blocking ready-to-enter trucks. He urged global pressure on Israel to allow aid access, emphasizing hopes for Palestinian recovery and a dignified life, while commending Egypt's role in sustaining humanitarian support. The Egyptian Prime Minister has reaffirmed Egypt's unwavering support for Palestine's right to self-determination and statehood. That comes as President Mahmoud Abbas praised Egypt's consistent stance and commitment to defending Palestinian rights. He also expressed hope that upcoming Arab summit on February 27th would reinforce support for Palestine, ensuring a strong regional and international stance amid ongoing developments. That came during their meeting in Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, at the 38th Ordinary Session of the African Union Summit. That came as they spoke at the Arab Summit. Egypt has facilitated vital aid and medical assistance for Palestinians crossing Rafah, providing free healthcare, surgeries and humanitarian relief, while urging global support amid Gaza's crisis. Now for more, we cross over to Mona Masari in our newsroom. Mona.
Thank you so much, Mark. And for further analysis, we're joined from Cairo by the editor-in-chief of Al-Shuruq newspaper and Egyptian Senator Ahmed Hussein. Good afternoon to you and welcome to Qnews. If I may ask you today, we've seen and followed the sixth batch of the first phase taking place. How do you think that will reflect on the ceasefire negotiations between Hamas and Israel?
Peace upon you all. Greetings to you and your esteemed viewers today. Witnessed a very significant development of the release of the sixth batch under the ceasefire either in Gaza or in Israel. As we know, 3 days ago, President of the United States, Donald Trump, threatened that the doors of hell will be open if Hamas not releasing all the Israeli prisoners captive since 7th of October 2023. We know that Hamas had frozen the release of the new patch, and due to Israel was reluctant of the agreement took to effect on the 20th of January regarding the entry of machinery and the delivery of medical assistance. Hamas objected this matter, and Israel had promised to execute such conditions. Today passed peacefully. The 3 Israelis were released along with the Palestinian prisoners returned in the 48 homeland, and some of them will be deported outside of Palestine. The question is that Hamas never released all detainees, and as Trump said it's up to Israel to execute their order. As he talked in a very decisive road, threatening Hamas and opened the hell door. At 7 p.m. is expected to have to convene for the tackling the next point. It seems that Trump, unfortunately, works with the full coordination with Israel, issuing such a statement in order to get the most gains in favor of Israel. And despite all of the things will be go smoothly in favor of Israel, as the only way to get its prisoners, as the failed to get this throughout the past 15 months. The upcoming question is not related to the agreement, but to the second phase that Israel knows that they should withdraw from Gaza. But the next day, who's going to govern Gaza, and what is the fate of Hamas fighters, and who's going to enter the aids based to the pivotal question, which is related to the third phase with respect to the reconstruction. And the proposals of Donald Trump is to buy or own Gaza. These are very important questions that we should be
definitely
proposed.
Those are questions to be asked at this upcoming stage, but we're speaking about today, and yet we have seen and followed the this sixth batch of the first phase. Now, with this phase going on smoothly as we've seen, do you think the agreement or the ceasefire agreement would proceed as we all anticipate?
I do not think that the second phase would be sustained unless it's a great miracle. One of the proposed scenarios that Netanyahu isn't going to break down the agreement, but isn't going to move forward in the second phase, meaning that he will pursue, by all means, to extend the second phase, meaning the execution of the second and the third phase is a great failure for Israel, as Hamas is still in the power. But in the second phase, deliberately took the matter to open without any determination of the ceasefire. Therefore, the Egyptian Arab plan expected to be proposed in the Arab Summit to answer the question who's going to govern the Gaza Strip in the next day. What is Hamas' role and their arms? Is the PLO has going to have a role, or the societal support committee formed by Egypt or supported by Egypt? And therefore, I think that we are going into, in the upcoming period, of more challenges and obstacles made by other Israel. Should be aware by the maneuvering by Israel, by leaving traps and use it whenever they like. There is a real pressure against Netanyahu, and it may be coordinated with Netanyahu and the far right wing. And Trump also said that will support Israel if decided to do the resumption of the fighting once again.
Right. Now, we've seen and followed up what happened this morning. Now, how significant was Egypt's role as a mediator in the detainee exchange and definitely the broader ceasefire negotiation at large?
We all know we are far away of the agreement in large scale.
No, excuse me. Pardon me, sir. I said, how do you view Egypt's role in the mediation as a mediator in the detainee exchange and the broader ceasefire negotiations?
Certainly, the Egyptian role, I can, pardon me, I didn't understand the question very well, or I didn't hear it well, but I've heard it very well now. Egypt's role was in a very pivotal role since the beginning, played a main role in the negotiation by supporting the Palestinian rights, played a great role along with Qatar of the agreement that has been reached. And it is the most country that delivered the humanitarian aid, that 70% along with the Egyptian government and the NGOs made the trucking to enter Gaza in supporting the Palestinian people. Therefore, Egyptian role was very good throughout all the levels. But most importantly, Egypt is the one that played the role in confronting the Israeli proposals and then Trump's proposal regarding the displacing the Palestinian people. Egypt has said decisively that the proposal is going to fail because of Egypt's role supported by the brotherly Jordan. So to fail the Netanyahu's scheme will go in deeply to address the matter and might reach a real settlement to the Palestinian cause.
Right. If I may read here this urgent piece of news we just got, an Egyptian source has affirmed that intensified Egyptian efforts are underway to form a temporary committee to oversee the relief and reconstruction process in the Gaza Strip. The source further said that Hamas has affirmed its commitment to the three-phase ceasefire agreement and its non-participation in governing the Gaza Strip in the upcoming phase. We've just had this piece of news right away. So do you want me to read that again, or do you want, or would you please illustrate on what's your take on that?
I'm sorry.
Again, I'll read the piece of news again. An Egyptian source has affirmed that intensified Egyptian efforts are underway to form a temporary committee to oversee the relief and reconstruction process in the Gaza Strip. The source further said that Hamas has affirmed its commitment to the three-phase ceasefire agreement and its non-participation in governing the Gaza Strip in this upcoming phase. Your comment, sir.
Yes, as we all know, Egypt played a great role of forming the Societal Support Committee. And Egypt has already
No. The
revealed
piece of information that we got, that Hamas will continue the three-phase ceasefire agreement and will not be governing Gaza in this upcoming stage. This is the piece of news, sir. No, I mean Hamas will continue the three phases, the whole three phases agreed, and will not be governing Gaza at this upcoming stage. This is the piece of news, sir.
Certainly, Egypt, along with Qatar, repeatedly said that Hamas is committed to the three-phase ceasefire agreement. But the issue is related to Israel that did not comply with this agreement by made several violations. Therefore, the main issue would Israel and not Hamas, and therefore this is a very pivotal point. The Qatari and Egyptian mediators, along with the US, to pressure Israel to execute at this point, and the following point related to with the second phase. And I expect several technical challenges will emerge as the United States insisted of not having Hamas, and Hamas still have the guns. And the matter would be relying on
it doesn't seem that you got the well translation of this piece of news. I guess from Cairo, that was the editor-in-chief of Al-Shuruq newspaper and Egyptian Senator Ahmed Hussein. We thank you so much for joining us here on Qnews. And I guess now we move back to Mark.
Thank you very much, Mona. Thank you very much indeed. Now, in some more news, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has firmly rejected any attempts to forcibly displace Palestinians from their homeland. Speaking at the 38th African Union Summit in Ethiopia, Abbas dismissed any notion of implementing a new deal of the century, calling such ideas delusional. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has praised mediators for their role in maintaining the Gaza ceasefire. Speaking at the African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, Guterres called for the truce to be upheld and for all detainees to be released. Now, as you've been hearing a few moments ago, the 38th African Union Summit has begun in Addis Ababa, with Angola presiding over the two-day conference. The summit is set to discuss major issues affecting the continent, including the ongoing war on Gaza, food security, digital transformation, climate change, and economic integration among member states. UNRWA Commissioner General Felipe Lazzarini has warned that Gaza narrowly avoided famine, but remains on the brink of a major food crisis. He said that the war has completely destroyed Gaza's vital infrastructure, adding that the agency's current resources are insufficient to meet the scale of humanitarian needs. That's almost all we have time for, but here's a look at the top headlines this hour. Red Cross receives 3 Israeli detainees as part of the 6th phase of exchange deal between Palestinian factions and Israel. Labour and socialist parties in the United Kingdom call for nationwide protests against Trump's plan to displace Palestinians from Gaza. And the Egyptian Prime Minister reaffirms Egypt's unwavering support for Palestine's right to self-determination and statehood. And that's all for this hour on our news bulletin, but don't forget to follow Q News on our social media platforms on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram and TikTok at QNewsEGY. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more here on Q News.